everything wrong with...
Push me, pull you.
Let's start.
A puppet show is coming.
The children will be excited. No one in the hills has ever seen a puppet show.
I highly doubt that. I mean, there was a time where puppet shows were a lot more common than they are today. You know, the 1900s, I think. So by the time this episode would have come out, everyone in the hills would have probably seen at least one puppet show. Also, Skarloey shows absolutely no enthusiasm about the announcement. 3 sins.
Skarloey puffed into the transfer yards. Thomas and the narrow gauge controller were already there.
Please, sir, may I pull the puppet show special?
That's a fine idea, Skarloey.
Why are you trusting Skarloey to pull the special? You know he's done a lot of bad things in past episodes, so why trust him to pull this one train? He couldn't even deliver a bottle of milk. 1 sin.
Skarloey's boiler bubbled with excitement. Watch out, they're heavy.
And how would you know that? You haven't pulled it yourself, and you're a standard gauge engine. 2 sins.
Skarloey buffered up. Slowly, Skarloey puffed away. The cars were heavy.
Okay, there's no way those cars are that heavy. They're carrying a puppet show. I bet even Mike, Rex, and Bert can pull that train separately. Also, Skarloey has no brake van. 5 sins.
But Skarloey was happy. The puppet show special was his.
If the puppet show train is supposed to be heavy, why isn't Skarloey blushing bright red or showing any signs of being tired? 2 sins.
Skarloey heaved and hauled up the steep hill. At last he reached the top.
Are you sure that's the top of a hill? It looks more like an abandoned shunting yard in the middle of nowhere to me. 1 sin.
Rheneas was there. He was very excited to see the puppet show special.
What is Rheneas doing there? He's not even pulling a train or at a signal. He's just sitting in the middle of the line for no reason. Was he just waiting for the engine pulling the puppet show train just so he could ask them if they needed help? 7 sins.
Those cars look heavy. I could help you.
Skarloey didn't want to share his special with Rheneas.
No, thank you. I can pull these cars on my own, Rheneas. I'm stronger than you. No, you're not. Oh, yes, I am.
Why are you guys fighting over strength? You're over 100 years old at this point. You should know better by now. Especially you, Rheneas, after the events of Rheneas and the dinosaur. 10 sins.
Rheneas was soon coupled up to the back of the train. They pulled with all their strength and steam. First the cars trundled one way. Then they trundled the other. Skarloey was determined to win.
This whole sequence is absolutely ridiculous. 8 sins.
Then Rheneas heard a creaking and a cranking. He knew the couplings were being pulled too hard.
Then stop pulling. Or better yet, tell Skarloey that the couplings are breaking.
Then there was trouble. With a crack and a clank, Rheneas' couplings snapped. The puppet show cars bashed and bumped into Skarloey and pushed him down the other side of the hill.
How does that even happen? Again, those cars are not that heavy, if at all. And how did their cargo not spill out? 6 sins.
Skarloey was scared. He tried to apply his brakes, but they wouldn't work.
Of course they don't work. And how does his brakes suddenly break? They were working just perfectly fine before. 2 sins.
Skarloey saw Duncan. He was pushing cars of bunting onto the main track.
Look out, Duncan! Stop!
But it was too late. Skarloey crashed into Duncan's cars. Bunting flew into the air. It fell all over Skarloey.
Okay, first of all, why was Duncan just pushing his cars of bunting onto Skarloey's line? Does he seriously not know that there was going to be an accident? Secondly, instead of shouting, why don't you just blow your whistle, Skarloey? Third, Why didn't Duncan stop when Skarloey was about to run into him when Skarloey told him to? And fourth, how does a crash like that cause the bunting to fly up in the air like that? Wouldn't those trucks tip over when Skarloey hit them? 8 cents.
Then Skarloey saw Rusty at a junction ahead. Rusty was pulling cars of special ice cream.
Out of my way! I can't stop!
Rusty stopped right across the tracks. Skarloey bashed into Rusty's cars. Ice cream flew into the air and spattered all over the engines.
First of all, why is Rusty carrying ice cream on a flatbed? The ice cream is going to melt. They seriously didn't have any vans available? Secondly, how was Skarloey unable to stop himself? He's no longer a runaway. He should be able to stop easily. At least he remembered to use his whistle this time. Third, why, oh why, did Rusty stop in the middle of the track? Is it really that hard to get out of the way? Skarloey even told you to get out of the way, you idiot! And fourth, again, there's no way that crash was able to cause the ice cream to fly up in the air like that. 20 cents.
Rusty was cross. Now there would be no ice cream at the puppet show.
Why are you cross? You're the one who stopped in the middle of the track when Skarloey told you to get out of the way. If anything, Skarloey should be cross with you. 3 cents.
Then there was trouble. Skarloey went round the bend too fast. He steamed into a siding. Skarloey bashed through the buffers. And with a splash, a sploosh, and a splosh, Skarloey plunged into Percival Pond.
Why were the points set towards the pond? And why didn't Skarloey stop before hitting the buffers? 2 cents.
Slowly, Rheneas heaved and hauled his friend out of the pond. At last, Skarloey was back on the rails. But his firebox was out, and his coal was wet.
Skarloey took no damage from the crash. 3 cents.
Skarloey had a lot to do. He delivered new cars of ice cream to Rusty.
What happened to the cars Rusty was pulling? How were Rusty and Skarloey cleansed that quickly? And how was Rusty going to couple up to those cars as Skarloey brought them on a different track? 5 cents.
Then Skarloey found Duncan. Duncan's cars were now filled with the bunting. I'm going to be late for the puppet show.
Well, maybe you wouldn't be running late if you actually did your job instead of just sitting there. Also, how did you get in front of those cars anyway? 5 cents.
Skarloey puffed up to Rheneas.
You're my best friend, Rheneas. And there's nothing stronger than friendship.
One of the cheesiest endings ever. 1 cent. 5 cents for the horrifying animation, 5 more cents for horrendous music, and 3 cents for being a 3 Strikes Formula episode.